The galaxy had been on the edge of war for a long time, but no one thought it would come to this. In a large meeting room aboard the orbital station Elysium Prime *, representatives from many alien species gathered with humans to try and find peace. The air was tense as everyone sat around a massive table, their faces showing a mix of hope and distrust. Among the human delegates were Daniel Carter, a calm and smart diplomat, and Rachel Monroe, a scientist who truly believed that working together could save both humanity and the aliens. For weeks, they had been talking about how to share resources fairly. Earth was running out of important materials like water and rare metals, while some alien species controlled planets rich in these resources. The aliens, however, didn't trust humans because of past conflicts. They worried that if they shared too much, humans might use the resources to build weapons instead of helping everyone survive. Tensions grew higher with each passing day. On this particular morning, things took a turn for the worse. A heated argument broke out when a Zorethian ambassador accused humans of secretly mining an asteroid claimed by his people. Daniel tried to explain that it wasn't true, but the Zorethian wouldn't listen. Voices rose, and soon other alien leaders joined in, blaming humans for everything wrong in the galaxy. Frustrated and feeling attacked, the human delegation stood up and walked out of the room without saying another word. Back on Earth, news of the breakdown spread quickly. People watched live broadcasts of the failed talks, their hearts sinking as they realized what this meant. War seemed closer than ever before. In the United Nations Council chamber, members scrambled to figure out what to do next. John Miller, the head of the council, paced back and forth, his face pale with worry. "This is bad," he muttered to himself. "If we don't fix this, we're finished." The council erupted into chaos. Some members shouted that walking away was a mistake and demanded immediate action to reopen negotiations. Others argued that the aliens couldn't be trusted anyway, and that preparing for war was the only option. Benjamin Hayes, a former military strategist now advising the council, sat quietly in the corner, observing everything. He knew that panic wouldn't solve anything, but he also understood that time was running out. While Earth spiraled into confusion, Rachel Monroe stayed behind on Elysium Prime *. She couldn't believe what had happened. All her hard work, all her hopes for cooperation, felt wasted. But she refused to give up. Sitting alone in her quarters, she thought about what to do next. Maybe there was still a chance to fix things, if she acted fast. Later that evening, Rachel decided to reach out to Calvor, a respected elder of the Varnic, a reptilian race that most humans distrusted. Though their species weren't exactly friends, Rachel had always found Calvor reasonable during discussions. She sent him a private message asking to meet secretly. To her relief, he agreed. When they met in a quiet corner of the station, Calvor listened carefully as Rachel explained the situation. "We can't let this fall apart," she said urgently. "If we do, billions will suffer." Calvor nodded slowly. "You're right," he replied in his deep, raspy voice. "But rebuilding trust won't be easy." As they spoke, neither of them realized just how complicated things were about to get. Unknown forces were already moving pieces into place, setting the stage for a conflict that could destroy everything, or force both sides to finally come together. For now, though, all anyone could do was wait and see whether peace still had a fighting chance. Behind the scenes, rumors began to spread about why the humans had walked out of the peace talks so suddenly. Some said it was sabotage by rogue groups within Earth's government. Others whispered that aliens might have manipulated the situation to make humans look bad. No one knew for sure, but one thing was clear. Trust between humans and the alien coalition was at an all-time low. Emily Dawson, the young intelligence analyst stationed on Elysium Prime *, spent hours monitoring communications between alien ships. She was good at her job, and her sharp eyes caught something unusual. Hidden in the data were encrypted messages being sent back and forth among several alien fleets. At first glance, they seemed harmless, but when Emily decoded them, she found alarming information. Certain species were preparing for war, even though their leaders publicly claimed to support peace. It looked like some factions were ready to attack Earth if negotiations failed completely. Meanwhile, Rachel Monroe worked closely with Kelvor, the Varnic Elder, to try and salvage what remained of the fragile alliance. They met in secret, brainstorming ways to bring both sides back to the table. Rachel believed that if they could show everyone how dangerous war would be for everyone involved, maybe cooler heads would prevail. Kelvor agreed but warned her that many of his own people didn't trust humans. Convincing them wouldn't be easy. Things took another turn when Daniel Carter suddenly returned to Elysium Prime*. He hadn't been part of the group that walked out of the talks earlier. Instead, he had stayed behind on Earth to investigate why the delegation left so abruptly. What he discovered shocked him. Not everyone in the human delegation had wanted to leave. A small group of diplomats had tried to stay and continue negotiating, but they were overruled by more aggressive members who thought walking away would force the aliens to give in to human demands. Daniel felt guilty for not stopping them and decided to come back to help fix the mess. On Earth, tensions continued to rise. Benjamin Hayes, the former military strategist turned council advisor, worked tirelessly to prepare defenses in case of an alien attack. But he also knew that humanity couldn't win a war against multiple alien species. Earth needed allies, not enemies. As he studied reports from Elysium Prime*, he realized that someone was leaking classified information to the Zorethians, a militant alien race known for their hunger for power. Whoever was doing this was putting Earth in even greater danger. At the same time, Laura Bennett, a journalist covering the crisis, stumbled upon documents linking high-ranking officials to suspicious financial deals with off-world corporations. These companies were known to supply weapons to hostile alien factions. Laura's discovery put her life in danger. She started receiving threatening messages telling her to stop digging. Scared but determined, she reached out to Rachel Monroe for help. Rachel didn't hesitate. She introduced Laura to Kelvor, who promised to protect her while she finished her investigation. Together, the three of them uncovered plans for a devastating preemptive strike against Earth's defense grid. If the Zorethians succeeded, Earth would be left defenseless. The clock was ticking, and there wasn't much time to act. As the days passed, the situation grew more desperate. Rachel and Kelvor worked around the clock to rally neutral alien factions to their side. They argued that war would destroy everyone, not just humans. Slowly, their message began to resonate with some species, though others remained skeptical. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter shared what he had learned with anyone who would listen, hoping to convince both humans and aliens that peace was still possible. But behind the scenes, darker forces were at play. Someone powerful wanted the talks to fail, and they were willing to do whatever it took to make sure that happened. For now, Rachel, Kelvor, and their growing team of unlikely allies had no idea who they were up against. All they knew was that failure wasn't an option. If they couldn't find a way to stop the coming storm, the galaxy would plunge into chaos, and billions of lives would hang in the balance. As the days passed, distrust between humans and aliens grew stronger. Benjamin Hayes, the former military strategist, uncovered something that made the situation even worse. He found evidence of betrayal, not from the aliens, but from within Earth's own leadership. Someone high up in the government had leaked classified information to the Zorethians, a violent alien race known for their desire to conquer new territories. This leak gave the Zorethians detailed knowledge of Earth's defense systems, making humanity more vulnerable than ever. The news shocked Benjamin, but he knew he couldn't handle this alone. He shared his findings with John Miller, the head of Earth's council. John listened carefully, his face growing darker with each word. "If this gets out," John said quietly, "it could destroy whatever trust is left." They both agreed to keep the information secret, for now, but they also knew they had to act quickly to stop further damage. Meanwhile, Laura Bennett, the journalist, continued her investigation into the suspicious financial transactions involving off-world corporations. With Rachel Monroe and Cal Vor protecting her, she dug deeper into the documents she had uncovered. What she found was chilling. Several high-ranking officials on Earth were receiving large payments from these companies, which supplied weapons to hostile alien factions. It seemed clear that someone powerful was profiting from the chaos and actively working to escalate tensions. Laura wanted to publish her story immediately, but Rachel warned her to be careful. "If you go public too soon," Rachel said, "you might tip off whoever is behind this. And if they know you're onto them, they'll do everything they can to silence you." Reluctantly, Laura agreed to wait until they had more proof. But time was running out. The Zorathians were already preparing for a massive attack, and Earth's defenses weren't ready. Back on Elysium Prime *, Rachel and Calvor worked tirelessly to build support among neutral alien species. They held secret meetings with ambassadors from races that hadn't taken sides yet, explaining the dangers of war and urging them to push for peace. Some listened, moved by Rachel's passion and Calvor's wisdom. Others remained hesitant, fearing retaliation from more aggressive species like the Zorathians. Daniel Carter, who had returned to the station, joined their efforts. He used his diplomatic skills to convince skeptical leaders that humanity wasn't as untrustworthy as many believed. "We've made mistakes," he admitted during one meeting. "But we're not your enemy. If we fight, none of us will survive." Despite their progress, the shadow of betrayal loomed over everything. Benjamin Hayes suspected that the person leaking information was close to the council itself. He began investigating members of Earth's leadership, looking for clues. His search led him to a man named Robert Grayson, a senior advisor with access to sensitive data. Robert had been acting strangely lately, avoiding meetings and disappearing for hours at a time. Benjamin decided to keep a close eye on him. One evening, while reviewing surveillance footage, Benjamin noticed something odd. Robert had entered a restricted area of the council building late at night. When Benjamin checked the security logs, he found that files containing Earth's defense plans had been accessed around the same time. His heart sank. It looked like Robert was the traitor. Benjamin confronted Robert the next day, demanding answers. At first, Robert denied everything, but when Benjamin showed him the evidence, he broke down. "I didn't have a choice," Robert cried. "They threatened my family. The Zorathians said they'd kill us all if I didn't help them." Hearing this, Benjamin felt a mix of anger and pity. He arrested Robert and reported the incident to John Miller. The council was thrown into turmoil. Some members called for immediate action to secure Earth's defenses, while others argued that revealing the betrayal would only make things worse. In the end, they decided to keep it quiet. For now. With every passing hour, the galaxy edged closer to war. Rachel, Calvor, Daniel, and Benjamin knew they were running out of time. Someone had to stop the Zorathians before it was too late. But how? And who would be brave enough to take the risk? With Earth's defenses compromised and the Zorathians preparing for an attack, Benjamin Hayes knew drastic action was needed. He called an emergency meeting with Rachel Monroe, Calvor, and Daniel Carter to discuss their options. The room was tense as they realized how dire the situation had become. "If we don't act now," Benjamin said firmly, "Earth won't stand a chance." After much debate, they came up with a risky plan: infiltrate the Zorathian flagship and disable their weapon systems before they could launch their assault. It was dangerous, almost suicidal, but it was the only way to buy enough time for diplomacy to work. Someone would have to volunteer for the mission, and both Daniel and Rachel stepped forward immediately. "No," Rachel said firmly when Daniel insisted he should go. "You're too valuable here. You can negotiate peace if this works." Daniel hesitated, torn between his duty and his desire to help. In the end, he reluctantly agreed to stay behind. Instead, Sarah Parker, a skilled pilot whose brother had died defending Earth years ago, joined the team. She had a personal stake in stopping the Zorathians and wasn't afraid to take risks. The next day, Daniel and Benjamin worked tirelessly to prepare Sarah and her small crew for the mission. They equipped a stolen alien shuttle with fake identification codes, disguising it as a trading vessel heading toward the Zorathian Armada. Sarah studied every detail of the flagship's layout, memorizing routes and security protocols. "We only get one shot at this," she reminded herself over and over again. Meanwhile, Rachel and Calvor focused on rallying support from neutral alien factions. They argued that if the Zorathians succeeded in attacking Earth, it would destabilize the entire galaxy. Slowly, their message began to gain traction. Ambassadors who had once been indifferent started speaking out against aggression, urging their leaders to reconsider alliances with the Zorathians. Though progress was slow, it gave Rachel hope that peace might still be possible if they could survive the coming days. On Earth, Laura Bennett finally published her exposé about the corruption within the Council. The article sparked outrage across the planet. Protesters filled the streets, demanding justice and accountability from their leaders. For the first time in weeks, people felt like they had a voice. John Miller, the head of the Council, addressed the public in a televised speech, promising transparency and reform. "We've made mistakes," he admitted, "but we will not let betrayal define us." Back aboard the stolen shuttle, Sarah and her team approached the Zorathian fleet. Navigating through heavily patrolled space was nerve-wracking, but their disguise held up under scrutiny. When they docked with the flagship, Sarah took a deep breath and led her team onto the massive alien ship. Every step felt like walking into a trap, but they pressed on, determined to complete their mission. Inside the flagship, the corridors were dimly lit and eerily quiet. Sarah relied on her training to move quickly and quietly, avoiding patrols of Zorathian soldiers. Her heart raced as they reached the restricted area housing the weapon control systems. A single guard stood outside the door, his back turned. With a silent signal, Sarah motioned for her teammate to distract him while she slipped inside. Once inside the control room, Sarah got to work. The system was complex, but she had practiced for this moment countless times. As her fingers flew over the alien console, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. "They know we're here," someone shouted. Sarah didn't panic. She kept working, her focus unshaken. The override sequence was nearly complete. Outside the control room, Daniel waited anxiously on Elysium Prime *, monitoring the situation remotely. He knew Sarah was risking everything to give humanity a fighting chance. If she succeeded, it might just be enough to turn the tide, not just in the battle, but in the struggle for peace. The alarms blared louder as Sarah worked frantically to disable the Zorathian weapon systems. Her hands moved quickly over the alien console, but every second felt like an eternity. Behind her, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The Zorathian guards were closing in. "Hurry," whispered one of her teammates, standing guard at the door. He held a stolen energy pistol, ready to fight if necessary. But they both knew they couldn't hold off the soldiers for long. Outnumbered and outgunned, their only hope was for Sarah to finish what she had started. Sarah ignored the chaos around her, focusing on the task at hand. The override sequence required precise inputs, and one mistake could mean disaster. Sweat dripped from her forehead as she entered the final commands. Just as the first Zorathian soldier burst into the room, Sarah hit the activation button. A low hum filled the air as the weapon systems powered down. "It's done," she shouted, grabbing her teammate's arm. They sprinted toward the exit, dodging blaster fire from the angry Zorathians. The hallway outside was chaos. Soldiers rushed in from all directions, shouting orders in their guttural language. Sarah and her team fought back, using whatever cover they could find. It was a desperate retreat, but they managed to make it to the docking bay where their shuttle waited. As they climbed aboard, Sarah glanced back at the flagship. She thought about Daniel, Rachel, and everyone else counting on her. If this mission failed, Earth would have been defenseless. But now, there was a chance, however small, for peace to prevail. Back on Elysium Prime news of the sabotage spread quickly. Calvor called an emergency meeting with neutral alien factions, presenting the Zorathians' actions as proof of their aggression. They were ready to attack without provocation, he said firmly. This is not justice. It is madness. His words resonated with many, and some ambassadors began openly criticizing the Zorathians' warmongering tactics. On Earth, the protests inspired by Laura Bennett's expose grew even larger. People demanded answers and accountability from their leaders. John Miller, the head of the council, announced new measures to root out corruption and ensure transparency moving forward. We must learn from our mistakes, he told the public, but we also need unity now more than ever. Benjamin Hayes worked behind the scenes to strengthen Earth's defenses while pushing for renewed negotiations. With the Zorathians temporarily weakened, he believed there was a window of opportunity to bring everyone back to the table. He reached out to Rachel, asking her to help draft a proposal for a ceasefire. Together, they crafted a plan that emphasized mutual survival over dominance. Daniel Carter played a crucial role in rallying human delegates who still believed in diplomacy. He reminded them of the stakes, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. If we don't try, he said during one heated discussion, then we've already lost. Rachel Monroe stayed in constant contact with Calvor, coordinating efforts between humans and sympathetic aliens. Their partnership had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that cooperation was possible, even in the darkest times. When Rachel suggested holding the next round of talks on a neutral space station instead of Elysium Prime Calvor agreed immediately. Neutral ground may help ease tensions, he said. As preparations for the new talks began, Sarah Parker returned to Earth as a hero. Her bravery had saved countless lives, though she didn't see herself as special. I just did what needed to be done, she told reporters. Still, her actions inspired others to believe that change was possible. Despite these glimmers of hope, challenges remained. The Zorathians vowed revenge for the sabotage, and distrust lingered among many species. But for the first time since the peace talks collapse, there was a sense that progress might be within reach. Humanity and its alien counterparts stood at a crossroads, war or peace, and though no one knew what the future held, they were willing to take a step forward, together. For Daniel, Rachel, Benjamin, and everyone else fighting for a better tomorrow, that was enough. Inside the Zorathian flagship, chaos erupted as Sarah and her team raced toward their shuttle. Blaster bolts whizzed past them, narrowly missing as they ducked behind crates and walls for cover. One of Sarah's teammates fell after being hit, clutching his leg in pain. Without hesitation, Sarah turned back to help him, dragging him along while the others provided covering fire. "We're not leaving anyone behind," she shouted over the noise. Her determination kept them moving despite the overwhelming odds. As they reached the docking bay, the remaining soldiers launched a final assault. Daniel Carter's voice crackled through Sarah's earpiece. "You're almost there. Hold on." Summoning every ounce of courage, Sarah made a split-second decision. She stayed behind to hold off the advancing Zorathians, giving her injured teammate time to board the shuttle. "Go," she yelled at the others. "I'll catch up." But deep down, she knew it might be her last stand. The Zorathians closed in, their weapons trained on her. Just as they prepared to fire, an explosion rocked the docking bay. The distraction gave Sarah just enough time to leap onto the shuttle before it launched. As the craft sped away from the flagship, Sarah collapsed in exhaustion, her heart pounding with relief and grief. She had saved the mission, but at a cost no one could ignore. Back on Elysium Prime news of Sarah's heroism spread quickly. Her sacrifice became a rallying cry for both humans and sympathetic aliens. Calvor addressed the council via hologram, urging all factions to return to the negotiating table. "What happened today proves that war benefits no one," he said solemnly. "Let us choose a better path, for our children and for the future of this galaxy." His words struck a chord. Even some species that had previously sided with the Zorathians began questioning their allegiance. On Earth, public opinion shifted dramatically. Laura Bennett's expose about corruption within the council continued to spark outrage, but now it fueled demands for reform rather than despair. People wanted leaders who would fight for peace, not profit. John Miller, the head of the council, seized the moment. He announced plans to hold a new round of talks on a neutral space station, emphasizing transparency and accountability. "This is our chance to start over," he declared. "We cannot afford to fail again." Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly alongside Kelvor to ensure the upcoming negotiations would succeed. They drafted proposals focused on mutual survival, sharing resources, protecting vulnerable planets, and establishing clear rules for coexistence. For the first time, many alien ambassadors listened without hostility. Some even admitted privately that they admired humanity's resilience. Benjamin Hayes coordinated Earth's defense efforts while preparing for the talks. Though the Zorathians remained a threat, their weakened position gave humanity leverage. Benjamin also pushed for stricter oversight of government officials, ensuring no one could betray Earth again. "Trust is fragile," he told John Miller, "but we can rebuild it, if we're honest." Daniel Carter played a key role in rebuilding relationships between humans and aliens. He met with skeptical leaders, sharing stories of Sarah's bravery and reminding them why cooperation mattered. His calm demeanor and unwavering belief in diplomacy earned respect from even the most stubborn opponents. As the day of the new talks approached, tensions still lingered. The Zorathians refused to participate, accusing humans of sabotage and vowing retaliation. Yet, for the first time, they found themselves isolated. Most species recognized that continuing down the path of conflict would only lead to destruction. On the neutral space station, delegates gathered once more. This time, the atmosphere felt different. There was hope, not certainty, but a glimmer of possibility. Rachel stood beside Kelvor as the sessions began, her heart swelling with pride. Humanity had walked away from peace talks before, but now they were ready to stay and fight for something greater. Though challenges lay ahead, the galaxy took its first step toward a brighter future. And in that moment, surrounded by allies old and new, Rachel allowed herself to believe that peace might truly be within reach. The new round of peace talks began on the neutral space station, a place chosen to ensure fairness for all parties. Delegates from dozens of species gathered in a large circular room, their faces reflecting a mix of hope and caution. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense that progress might actually be possible. Rachel Monroe sat beside Kelvor, her heart pounding with anticipation. She had worked so hard for this moment, and now it was finally here. The discussion started slowly, with each side airing grievances and sharing concerns. Some aliens still blamed humans for past mistakes, while others accused Earth of being too greedy when it came to resources. Benjamin Hayes, representing humanity's defense interests, listened patiently and responded calmly. He acknowledged Earth's errors, but emphasized the need for cooperation moving forward. "We can't change the past," he said firmly, "but we can build a better future if we work together." Daniel Carter took the lead during negotiations about resource-sharing agreements. His experience as a diplomat made him skilled at finding common ground, even between bitter rivals. When tensions flared, he reminded everyone of Sarah Parker's bravery and how her sacrifice had given them another chance. Slowly, arguments turned into compromises, and hostility gave way to understanding. On Earth, John Miller oversaw reforms within the council to restore public trust. Corruption scandals had shaken people's faith in their leaders, but Miller promised transparency and accountability. He introduced measures to prevent leaks and misuse of power, earning cautious support from citizens. Laura Bennett continued reporting on these changes, holding officials accountable while highlighting positive steps toward unity. Meanwhile, Kelvor played a vital role in bridging divides among alien factions. Many species distrusted one another just as much as they distrusted humans, but Kelvor urged them to focus on survival rather than old grudges. "War will destroy us all," he warned repeatedly. His words resonated deeply, helping to bring skeptical ambassadors closer to agreement. As days passed, tentative deals emerged. Agreements were reached on sharing water-rich asteroids, protecting endangered planets, and establishing trade routes that benefited everyone. Though not perfect, these arrangements laid a foundation for long-term cooperation. For the first time, humanity and its alien counterparts began to see themselves not as enemies, but as partners. The Zorathians remained absent from the talks, continuing to threaten retaliation. However, their aggressive stance only pushed other species further away. Without allies, the Zorathians found themselves isolated, a fact that worried even their own leaders. Quietly, some Zorathian ambassadors reached out to Kelvor, hinting at a willingness to reconsider their position if certain conditions were met. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be after such a crisis. People celebrated small victories, like the reopening of interstellar trade routes and the arrival of much-needed resources. Benjamin Hayes became a symbol of resilience, championing reforms to strengthen Earth's defenses while promoting diplomacy over conflict. Sarah Parker's heroism inspired countless others. Statues were erected in her honor, and schools taught her story as an example of courage and selflessness. Her actions reminded everyone that even in the darkest moments, individuals could make a difference. Though challenges remained, the galaxy felt different now. Humanity had walked away from peace talks once before, but this time, they chose to stay. They chose to fight for something greater than fear or greed. And though peace was still fragile, it no longer seemed impossible. Rachel looked around the negotiation table one final time as the talks concluded. Despite scars left by betrayal and conflict, she saw glimpses of hope. Maybe coexistence wasn't such a far-fetched dream after all. As delegates shook hands and exchanged promises, Rachel allowed herself to believe in a brighter future for everyone.